So, 2 weeks ago I made a video asking the question, what privilege do you think I have? And I said that I would make an earnest attempt at soul searching and thinking about the privileges that I have, and I will take all of your answers into consideration. Well, that video had 91 comments on it, and I also got a video response from Mr. Will Thinks About, and I'll leave a link to that in the description box. Starting with that video response, because he bothered to hit record and make a video on this social networking platform where we share videos. Yeah, I could boil down his major contributions to this conversation that other people didn't cover in their comments to I live in a Western versus non-Western world, and the standard of living is better in the Western world. And I'll agree, yeah, I really love the ability to take a shower every day. And just thinking, whenever I want to go get a glass of water, I can get some clean water, and if something ever went wrong with that, if there was like a pipe busted underneath the house and there was mud mixing into the water and it was coming out with mud, I could just go a couple streets down to a gas station or a grocery store and buy some bottled water very easily and very cheaply. So, yeah, I have Western standard of living privilege. The other thing that Mr. Will added to this conversation in his video was that I need to think about this on the neighborhood level as well. Like, for instance, I have white privilege because I'm white, right? Well, if I'm in a neighborhood full of white people, how much of a privilege is that? And I get that. Also, in certain aspects of my life, whiteness has not been that much of a privilege. I remember growing up in very mixed neighborhoods, mostly because of my father being in the Army and me being an Army brat, and the Army being a really great place for anyone to get ahead in life, including minorities. And so most of my childhood I spent in schools with a lot of different races. And in Sierra Vista, Arizona, there was a lot of Hispanic people. And I remember some of the stigma of being white being... at the time, there was a movie that came out called White Men Can't Jump. You might have heard of it. Woody Harrelson's in it. Let's see. White men can't sing. White men have no rhythm. White men have smaller penises. And when you're a teenager, that's something that really matters when there's a stigma about your penis size. So, yeah. For the most part, I'd say that my whiteness has been good to me in that I can wear my hair just as it comes out of my head, and I don't have to do anything to it to not look crazy or out of place, And I'm running my fingers through my hair because I just want to make this point. I don't do anything to my hair. There's no hairspray. People have left me comments before about, immaculate hair or bulletproof hair or whatnot. There's no hairspray in my hair. I can just run a towel through it. I never use a comb, right? And just go to work. That's it. Towel dry, go to work. And I don't look out of place. So yeah. Let's get on to these comments. Let's see. Big Tombowski said, "You certainly don't have spelling privilege." And he's correct. I did misspell the word privilege. In the title of the video, And I left it there for probably 3 hours before I saw his comment and then went and edited it. And yeah, normally I do have spelling privilege in that I wasn't born dyslexic, and I do have a degree where one of my majors was English, but there are certain words that always don't look right to me. Like every different variation of the word there, you know. Anytime the word there is written in whatever context, it always looks wrong to me. Robert Wallace had a few of them. He said, if I achieve success, no one's going to accuse me of affirmative action. I'd say that's a pretty weak privilege in that it doesn't help me achieve the success in the first place. And what other people think about how I got to my place of success doesn't really bother me. I mean, being a white person, maybe they'll just figure that I only got that success because I was white, because of privilege, you know. So I don't know. He also said, if I spend too much time in a store, I won't automatically be thought a thief. Well, here's a curveball to that. I've had people take one look at me and think that I was a likely child predator, even though I have nothing like that in my history, in my past. Don't even do anything around children at all, ever. But one time in particular, my sister's mother-in-law threatened my life if I ever did anything to her grandkids. You know, and that was when I first met her, because that was just her first impression of me. And also, I remember being pulled over by a cop, and then my niece, who has some of her Panamanian blood in her, shows in her skin color. She's a little bit tanner than me. She was sitting in the passenger side, and the policeman actually was in the window talking to her, asking, "Are you okay?" You know? So, yeah, maybe I won't be thought of as a thief if I'm loitering in a store too long. But I have had people look at me and immediately think something else wrong and have no reason for it. He also said, if you're driving a nice car, it won't be considered stolen. I never considered that anyone driving any car is stolen. You know? Unless I see, like, spray paint over the license plate. And I don't know. But, like, I would consider somebody who I thought looked like they were on meth, like, you know, rail thin and breaking out and looked like they'd been picking at themselves. I consider maybe them to be possible car thieves, but it wouldn't be based on race. It would be based on the signs of meth use. And so Robert Wallace got a lot of comments back on that. There was a little conversation there. But Mabasi, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Mabasi? Mabasai? I don't know. He said, white privilege, first world privileges, hetero privilege, cisgender privilege. Talk about how you can have all of these things and not be a bad person. Okay. Whatever privilege you have doesn't make you a bad person. What? Let's see. Cisgender privilege. I don't know what I get for having cisgender privilege other than buying clothes, but that even that, I mean, Hillary Clinton was a pioneer of the pantsuit, and I feel like jeans have become so gender neutral that a lot of like t-shirts, like my girlfriend could wear this t-shirt right out of the closet, and nobody would say anything to her about it being wrong. Um, I guess it might look weird if I were wearing a bra and you guys could see the bra strap shape underneath my shirt, but I don't want to wear a bra. But I guess there might be a man who wants to wear a bra. Uh, Hetero privilege. Mm, I guess. I mean, in my state, uh, gay couples have the same rights as straight couples. So, um, I guess in certain company, you would you'd probably have more privilege if you were hetero if you were in a rural area in Colorado, because you just encounter people who would treat you with more respect. Uh, let's see. Male privilege. That was what Dat uh, Dat Benenforcer. Dat Benenforcer. Any guy, the guy with the wolf icon. He says, "You forgot male privilege," which is something that Mabasi he forgot to say. So male privilege. Let me tell you about male privilege. Um, in my field, if you are a male, you are treated far worse than if you are a female. And that's just because I work in human services fields, like behavioral health fields. And, yeah, it's not a privilege. Not at all. For instance, I've seen in certain behavioral health centers where men have to stay on the men's ward, the men's side of the company, but women are allowed to do treatment for other women and men because you're just looked at as, well, obviously, men are more likely to take advantage of women in a medical setting, you know? So we'll just keep the men to treating just men, and the women can do either job, whatever they want, you know? Also, not a privilege in my field would be to be a shitlord instead of a social justice warrior. Politically, if you are not politically a social justice warrior, you are going to have a disadvantage in my field, or you're just going to have to hide your political affiliations well. Um, it's just the way it is. Um, Poseidon Kicklidon said, "Your privilege is quite obvious. You're a straight white, well-fed male. I guess I have food privilege. Um, if I made a little bit more money, I might be even more food privileged and become near vegetarian, maybe a pescatarian. Maybe pescatarians have the greatest food privilege. It's weird because the people who talk about privilege the most are, to me, the most likely to eat at Whole Paycheck Foods or Sprouts or any of the like natural grocers, the expensive places to eat. They spend a lot of money on food. Those people that talk about privilege. Um, let's say, with facial hair. I guess I have facial hair privilege. That's a thing. People who don't have facial hair are less privileged than me. The hell is that? I'm privileged because I don't live on either coast in my country. I'm sorry, but to quote NoFX, We call the heartland not very smart land. No, you're not privileged to not live on either coast. You're privileged when you do live on the coast, because for some reason landowners on either coast think that they're living on top of gold mines for the prices they want for houses out there. Um, let's see. Oh, Poseidon Kicklidon said that I could overcome all of my faults if I were to become an illegal alien. And he said, if you're a legal U.S. citizen, though, I'm afraid you're back in their doghouse. Okay, so what I want to talk about there is my citizenship. I am a U.S. citizen, and when I'm on my own, thinking about what privileges I have, immediately I'm thinking about what helps me get a job. And so my U.S. citizenship actually is the number one thing that I would think about if I was thinking about my privilege. Not that I'm in a Western world at all. And it's the citizenship of the place that I'm living. If I were to move to Canada, I would be, underprivileged because I can't get a job as easily as a Canadian, you know. But U.S. citizenship would be first on my list. The second would be, and this is a strange one, my veteran status. Now, I know I worked hard for that. It's not a privilege that you're born with or just handed. You actually have to choose to earn it. But I also understand that there are people who would have liked to serve and they were not physically capable because of the way that they were born. And for many different vocations in the Army, basically, you could consider them the types of jobs where all they have to do is sign up and be a guy with a penis and a pulse. It's pretty brainless in some of those jobs. So my job was not like that, but for all the different things that I get rewarded with now for having lost 6 years of my life to the Army, yeah, I feel like I'm still getting rewarded, even though I'm a disabled vet. I feel like there's certain things that will help me, and in employment, on an employment application, that's one of those things that really really helps my veteran status. And the third thing that I consider a privilege is I'm not a felon, right? And again, that's something that some people think, well, that's something that you earn by never doing wrong, so never doing so wrong that you're going to be arrested by the police and charged with a felony. And to that I'm just going to say there are authors that have written books on how every person in America commits at least 3 felonies a day. Okay? And if they want to get you, they'll get you. You know? I feel like those are the 3 things that I think about the most because they're employment related, and that's what matters the most to me. Let's see. Another Volvox fan wants me to keep in mind the distinction between statistical privileges and individual privilege. I'm less likely to be shot by a U.S. cop than a black person. And the individual privilege example he gives is Donald Trump inheriting financial privileges. As far as individual privilege, I would say that I was born to one parent with a mental disability. She is schizophrenic, and it's really bad. And so the one parent that I had left outside of that was more more of the role model for me than my my other parent, and so I felt like I started out with less of a privilege than somebody who had two mentally sound parents. But financially, I feel like I was in the same boat as many, many other people. Um, we weren't ever necessarily destitute, but um, I couldn't get every Nintendo game I wanted. That would be just crazy. I think in my childhood I owned probably about 20 Nintendo titles, and I had my own Nintendo, and I had 5 different controllers. I had Nintendo privilege at that level. Um, oh, and my dad put a TV in the back patio room so that my brother and I would use that TV instead of the TV in the living room. So we had 2 TV in the family privilege. Um, let's see. I think I've done better for myself as far as wealth privilege, as for what I've been able to earn in my life. Um, I have a very nice phone, so I have phone privilege. Let's see. I used my veterans benefits to help me get my degree, so yeah, life worked out for me in that respect. Mike Mick Brenton wants to skip this question because it's just a rabbit hole that he doesn't want to go down. I understand that. Not really. Chris Kunkel said that I'm an American, blessed by baby Ronald Reagan, and that I need to feel the freedom. Um, yeah, I feel free. I know that if I were in a country where Americans were hated, I would just say that I was Canadian, and I would be otherwise free to roam about the world. Um, Rod Line says I have full head of hair privilege. Signed, Baldy McBaldface. um, yeah, I have hair. Um, it's not the best head of hair and or beard in the world. I'd say if you're looking for a bulletproof beard here on YouTube, Together for Peace has a fucking awesome beard. So does Keemstar. You know, Keemstar is a fucking dick, but he's got a fucking awesome beard. Um, Happy Jesus 123 says, "I'm not a dead former cab driver accused of pedophilia, and that's a privilege." Um, I did just have somebody comment on one of my videos that Happy Cabby is alive, and I don't know if they were talking about me, like I was like a reincarnation of Happy Cabby. Um, so I don't know. I did get accused by Happy Cabby of supporting pedophilia. That was a thing. Brian J 1962 says white cis hetero male, ergo all the privilege. Okay, we've already covered most of those. Um, Dat Ben Enforcer says I'm white. Godless Manitoban says you have white male privilege. Don't tell me you don't. It doesn't matter if you don't feel privileged. You're still privileged. And he signed it an angry white agender asexual arrow assigned female at birth. Dragon Slayer Ornstein says, I don't know enough about you to know what privileges you have. I mean, if you're not a Muslim, Jew, or vegan/vegetarian, then you have the privilege of eating bacon and enjoying it. Actually, I'm afraid of bacon. I try to eat it sparingly. I'm also afraid of Oreos and margarine. I think that they stick to me more than other foods, and I know that it should just be calories in, calories out, and that's what works for me on a calorie counter. But those foods in particular, I try to avoid. So, you don't have to be a Muslim, Jew, or vegan vegetarian. You can just simply have a fear of being fatter because of eating the butt fat off of a pig. Okay? Yellow Labrador says, you're a Yank. When Yanks come to our little town in wild, wild Cork, the local hotel serves dinner on serving platters instead of a plate. True fact. I have no idea what state Cork is in, but to me, a Yank is somebody from like New England area. Maybe I don't know if that means just like anyone who's not from the South or from some podunk town. I guess. Imperator Insomnia says, well, he didn't give me an example, and he started a conversation. When I'm asking a question, he starts a conversation, and Mabasai, whatever the fuck he calls himself, was part of that conversation too. And yeah, no one's giving me any ideas for what privileges I have. So Frey2221 says, you're a fucking white male. And I know what video that comes from now because somebody made a cringe compilation, and I finally saw that because I'd seen Sci-10 Atheist, the cartoons that he makes, and I'd seen like a character doing that, and then finally I saw where it came from, and I was like, oh, I get it now. So, for a while I didn't have the privilege of knowing the context of the joke. Edio Wang says, all the privileges that led to you having the education, leisure time, and intellectual honesty to even be able to consider examining this question in an open forum. See, there's a weird privilege there that I will agree with, and that is, I don't give a fuck if somebody gets offended by this, by me even talking about privilege, and then says, well, you are now cast out of Shitlord Kingdom because you fucking dared to actually think about privileges as if they're actually a thing. Fuck you. I'm just doing this for fun, and I decided to explore the concept. So the intellectual honesty part, being able to even consider examining the question, I get that. Yeah, I agree. There's something about me that does not care if I were to lose subscribers over this fucking video. Let's see. I don't consider it privileges that led me to having an education other than, Western world, first world. You're all required to get, at least through the 10th grade, or else you're, truant, and a truancy officer will come after you. And I had a hard time graduating high school. I used my time in the military to get me into a university. And I worked my way back into having that path towards getting higher education. I had to work hard at it. So I don't consider my education as much of a privilege as I do something that I worked very, very hard to attain. Leisure time. Again, it's like a first world thing. I think more people have leisure time than I do. Seriously, because outside of my job, I do a lot of things to prepare myself for my job, and I have to do a lot of continuing education. And lawyers, like one of the highest paid professions is being a lawyer, right? Everybody wants a lawyer in the family because whatever. They have no free time. None. They work hard for their money. Let's see. Ron Williams says, I've got no idea why people allow critical theory to worm its way into their head, so I'll do the next best thing and accuse you of having bookshelf privilege. This should work because I only have 3 bookshelves in this room, and I feel guilty every time I look at the stacks of marginalized books scattered around. Furniture justice. Okay, I actually, on Twitter, I posted a picture that was a little bit better than this, but I'm going to recline my lazy boy recliner privilege, right? Here we go. So that bookshelf right there actually is filled with paintings that I made, and each one, the canvas was probably less than $3 because I buy them in bulk, and I just like to paint. So there's no books there. Right over here are stacks of Guitar World magazine that I've been collecting for decades, and over here is CDs. Okay, those are all CDs, which is like a completely obsolete form of listening to your music. And so only here and here do you actually see books. So I didn't set this room up to just be all books and just make myself look smarter like a couple of other YouTubers have been known to do. There's other things back there. So, SJW 101, he again says, advanced industrialized world that I was born into, first world privilege. Certain aspects of my upbringing was I lucky enough to have parents / family who had money to support you or leave you property / wealth. I don't know. Prior to the last 5 years of my life, the most money I got from anyone after I turned 18 was $500 stuffed into my pocket, and a pat on the back saying, good luck. Then I had a little bit of an inheritance that was about a quarter of a house worth. So I've had that happen in my life. Wasn't enough to really feel that I got passed on anything because I'd already worked very hard to get past all of the financial difficulties of my life and get some education, and all that little bit of inheritance that I got happened after I'd actually worked to get to a better place in life. So I never really had to worry about clothing as a kid, as far as like what would I have some. I always had plenty of clothes to wear, food to eat. I didn't have a car given to me when I was a kid. I learned how to drive while I was in the Army. That's when I got my driver's license at the age of 19, because I wasn't handed a car as a kid. So I would say partially privileged there, but not all the way. SJW 101 says, obviously race and gender can be a benefit or unearned privilege. But seriously, in my job, it is not a privilege. Especially when you get cliques of women who like to promote and work around other women because they feel like they as social justice warriors themselves feel like it's their job to not hire, promote, or give anything to white men. It's a thing in fields where social workers abound. It's a thing. Relia UL says that nobody can know how privileged a person is or isn't without knowing their life situation. John Sabri says, isn't privilege just a synonym for stereotypes? Are stereotypes what social justice warriors are trying to tear down? I guess. Sometimes there's a little bit of irony and hypocrisy to it when you think about how they don't want stereotypes for minorities, but then they'll stereotype white people as having privilege. I see what you're saying, John. Rebel's Heart said, an uneducated person would say you have girlfriend privilege, but any man with a lick of sense knows that you had to work hard for one. And I really can't decide if that was an insult or not. He might just have a problem with enunciating and putting his thoughts into words, but it seemed like he's saying that I'm ugly. Nick Bravo said that I'm ugly. Great. Quetta Impfortha said, miss your weekly Mountain Dew vids. Sorry. Nothing with high fructose corn syrup anymore. This is a diet soda. I'm tired of being fat. Lost about 25 pounds this year. Lose another 25 pounds next year just for not drinking Mountain Dew. I don't have skinny privilege. There you go. I have a sort of privilege with size where I don't have the same problems as other counselors in stressful de-escalation situations where somebody's screaming and trying to be threatening. The ones that I tower over and I'm a lot bigger than, they treat me differently than a smaller or, sometimes smaller female counterpart. If you're trying to de-escalate a person, it's sometimes a lot easier to have a commanding authority in your voice and presence. So that's a privilege that part of it I didn't have to work for. I just got born big and grew up big naturally. I put some of the fat on myself, but just like even if I were to lose 50 pounds, I'd still have a considerable advantage over somebody who's 5 foot tall. Nomadic Chronicle says, Italian mafia looking privilege. I don't even have any Italian in me that I know of. I just did the Ancestry DNA thing. So I guess I'll find out if I do have some Italian in me, but I don't feel like I look or am Italian. I think when people see my last name, they think that I might be Italian because there was a character that Andy Kaufman played that he was being like a stereotypical Italian mobster type guy. So when people see my last name, they think that I might have some Italian in me. Then they see me and they're like, he's fat. He might be eating a lot of pasta. Mike Snow 50. I think it's Mike Snow 50. Anyway, last week my lefty buddy told me white skin gives me the privilege of not having to worry about getting shot when I get pulled over. That's an interesting one because I don't worry about getting shot by police, and partly because in those same de escalation situations that I work around right now, I work with the police a lot. But if I'm driving and I see flashing lights, it could even be from an ambulance or fire engine. If I see flashing lights, I immediately think, oh, fuck, I'm going to get another ticket. You know? And I remember times when I could not afford to get a ticket, and I got a ticket, and I had to pay it, and it sucked. And I think I have traffic ticket PTSD. Seriously. I do not like seeing flashing lights when I'm driving. And just about any drive I take, I see flashing lights at least once, and I hate it. And I feel oppressed by the presence of police flashing lights all over my city. I really do. And it might not be a life-threatening oppression, but it certainly is. I can't afford what they can dole out in ticket fines. And I've been in horrible situations, monetarily, getting up to the place where I'm at, and I cannot stand that feeling. It just gives me the creeps. But yeah, I've been worried about people around me getting shot when I'm at a protest, because I filmed a lot of activism and put it on my YouTube channel, and sometimes it seems like they're begging cops just to get shot. They're kind of egging them on, and cops are really professional sometimes, more professional than you'd think. Stefan thus says, privilege insurance, obviously. The whole basis of their advertising campaign is that you have the privilege and you had better pay for it quickly. There's got to be a punchline to that. Did I just read it wrong? I don't know. Gareth Loves the Truth says, I won the lottery being born where I was in the time that I was and everything that came along with that. I do like the time that I'm living in. I love the internet. I love you guys. I love being able to talk to you guys over the internet. Nerdman says, born in rich country privilege. I've agreed. Deshaun Jackson wants me to learn how to spell the word privilege, which I have since then. Thank you. I have the Logic says, I have the privilege of choice during an era where male independence was at a reasonably high spot, and I think that men actually had a, a larger influence, especially over women in previous times. And I don't even know that I would want any of that privilege because I wouldn't necessarily use it being the person I am in the time that I grew up in. But yeah, I think that head of the household being a man used to mean a lot more than it does now. And I think that a big problem that a lot of men have, and a big reason for the divorce rate, is women can do a lot of the things that men can do in a family. And, every chore can be either person's chore, either person can work, and I feel like the breakdown of traditional roles, it leaves people thinking, well, what do I do if they can do everything without me? And I feel like that really does contribute to the divorce rate in our country because people haven't gotten over the fact that those traditional roles have pretty much become obsolete. And you have to be able to live with the fact that you are not needed as a man in a woman's life. They could do just as good without you. One Piece Nation says I'm a fucking white male. And then he gives me the progressive stack. And this is probably the best comment that I got on the whole video. And if you're this far with me, here's the good part. He says, number one, race. I'm white, so I guess I have the most privilege because I guess even Asian people and racially Jewish people follow underneath me on his progressive stack. Heteronormativity. You're either trans or cis on his thing, and I'm cis, so I guess I have that privilege. Gender privilege. Males, I guess, have the most privilege. So I got that. Sexuality. Straights have the most privilege, so I guess I have that. I don't understand why a pansexual or bisexual person would have less privilege if they were doing something that traditionally couldn't be seen to be bisexual because, if a bisexual person has a temporarily straight life, then, how would their relationship, their hetero relationship at that time, have any unprivileges to it? Let's see. Sex. I'm male, so I guess that's the most privilege on that one. Wow, the first five I've just maxed out privilege. Class. Now that's a very subjective thing. I don't consider myself wealthy or extremely wealthy or even upper class yet. Working on it. But I have hope, and my hope has not been dashed. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who have settled into their lives and resigned themselves to the fact that they're never going to be extremely wealthy. So I have hope privilege in that respect. I don't understand this next one. Religion. I'm an atheist, which I would consider to be that would be a hindrance in many situations here in America. But it's not so much of a hindrance when you are an atheist and came to that realization through skepticism, because just a good set of critical thinking skills will carry you very far. So I would consider like how atheism by way of skepticism has helped me in my life to be a giant privilege in the past couple years. So I don't know. I mean, I know atheists are reviled, and you can't be openly atheist in many situations, but the philosophies that underpin my atheism have really helped out in cleaning up my life. Weight. My BMI is over 30, so I think, not privileged. I mean, I know we just talked about food privilege here, but if you're fat, you're not as attractive on this scale thing, on this progressive stack. So I guess I'm privileged in that I've had a lot of food to eat, but I'm not privileged in that I show the signs of having a lot of food to eat. Okay. So, attractiveness. I'm going to say that on my best day, all I can get to is maybe someone saying ruggedly handsome, and then really emphasizing the word ruggedly. Like, you know. So, I don't think that I have that privilege at all. There have been a couple people who have who've taken odds with me saying things like that before. Like Kazoom thinks that I have a great beard, and it's William Riker like. That was before I grew out this part a little bit more, but yeah, if I got like a red Star Trek: The Next Generation uniform, I could be like Fat Riker. Like there's like Fat Elvis and Skinny Elvis. I could be Fat Riker. Ability, disabled or abled. I'm a disabled vet. I get a lot of privileges from that, but I still have the ability to walk on my own, and I just have to take a pill every day. I'd say that I've known a lot of people that have been far more disabled than I, and I feel still privileged in that sense. Health. I'm in better health than I've been in a long time after losing some of that weight. So I'd put myself in the middle of privileges there. Body type. Different situations give you different privilege there. Have you ever tried to drive anything by the car brand Kia? Fuck them. Okay, they did not make their cars for me. When I invite some friends and we're going out driving cars, test driving cars, we all pile into a Kia, turn around to talk to one of them, and their face is right the fuck here. You know? No. I cannot get into a fucking Kia. I right now drive a Ford F-150, and it's big, and I'm big, and it's a good fit. But there's a lot of cars out there that are not for me, especially back seat when somebody in the front seat is as big as me. No, it's not going to work. Fitness. I am relatively fit, somewhere in the middle, as far as being able to chase down screaming patients running down a hallway. I can do that. Social skills. I don't even understand why social skills is a privilege, except for those people who have, like, mild autism spectrum disorders, you know. Social skills is something that you can actually take a class in communications and get better at, you know. I feel like the internet is what's really stunting a lot of social growth with a lot of people. They need to use meetup.com and actually go out and see real fucking people. 15, personal status. Well, I guess that just depends on where I'm at the time. If I were to go over to a couple of certain people's videos, especially if they're live streaming, I get in on the chat and they're doing a hangout and I start talking, there are certain places where I'm despised. So I do have almost 10,000 subscribers now, and so I guess that's a personal status thing. Outside of here, I think that there's probably 50 to 100 professionals in my field that know who I am and know me for good work ethic and boundaries holding. A lot of boundaries holding. In one of my former jobs, I was actually given the nickname Dr. No, because I have no problem telling anyone no. So, those were all the progressive stack things that he listed. I think personal status privileges is one of those that I think that people can overcome their lack of privilege. Mitch Crane says, big ass chair privilege. So, I've had 2 big ass chairs in my YouTube career in my videos. One was in the office that I had prior to this one that I moved into in 2014. Right, this room. This one right here behind me is a Lazy Boy. It's a genuine leather Lazy Boy, and I got it at a thrift store used, and it was $150. And it's really good for backaches. Like, the whole reason why I got these chairs in the first place was that. The previous one that I was using, it was a recliner that was at a different house, and when I left the house, I had ruined the recliner was ruined to the point where I might have used it for another 6 months. Just the way that I was plopping down on it, I was breaking it. And so I might have used it for another 6 months if I was still living in that house, but when it came to moving and when I tried to take it apart in order to have the top cushion part separate from the bottom, I realized how broken up it was on the inside. Because I have one of those lack of privileges in that chairs are not made for a guy my size. I am horrible for chairs. So I have lack of privilege for being fat because I've broken chairs. But yeah, if you can get like $150, you can get a used, high quality, real leather Lazy Boy. And I guess I had the privilege of having a truck to be able to haul it home and have the physical strength to be able to put it in this room. And this one's held up pretty well. It hasn't broken at all. Felfop Returns says, I have the privilege of going into a woman's restroom if I only say I identify as female. And I had to respond to that one. I said, actually, there's unisex bathrooms in the place where I work. They're all kind of like single serve. Everyone's invited. Just when you go in, lock the door kind of bathrooms. I do not have male privilege for bathrooms because I would love to work in a place where there were urinals. And I used to have male privilege of walking in, whipping it out, peeing, and then washing my hands and leaving within like a minute, and yeah, You don't have to worry about tinkling all over something. You know, you don't have to like aim. You just like pee at the wall because it's a urinal, you know, and it catches everything. So yeah, I don't have male privilege at work with bathrooms. I have male privilege with bathrooms at concerts because the women line up for using their porta potties or their restrooms, and if you look at the men's side, they're just like walking in, peeing, walking right out. So I do have male privilege there. 1-800-STOMP said, "You have blow dryer privilege with your wind tunnel tested, perfect blow dried hair, sir. I'm triggered every time." Now, look, I do not use a blow dryer. This was just towel dried. I could make a video making like proof and evidence of this, but it's such a small little fact. I don't feel like doing it, but I responded to him. I said, "You're okay to not believe me, but I towel dry my hair." And he responded, "Those must be some special towels. You Americans get all the best stuff." Actually, I need to get some new towels. And I'm privileged in that I do have the money to get the new towels. I just don't feel like spending it. Michelle Knight says, "I believe that the definition of privilege is something which is specifically granted by law." And I guess privileges that I have been granted by law would include by virtue of my education and my licensure through the state. I have the privilege to be able to take away other people's privileges when they are crazy and acting out. That's about the only one that's granted by law to me, is I actually can put someone on a different kind of restriction, emergency commitments, whatnot. That's it. That's it. And really, that's just something that I have to do at my work. It's not something that I would enjoy doing outside of work. Jim Stacy says there's no such thing as privilege, and started a conversation with Mabasi, whatever the fuck his name is. Eric Haver says, not having to fear for your life when a cop pulls you over. And you're right, I don't fear for my life. I do fear that I'm going to get a ticket and have to spend money. Great Helm says the privilege to be able to vote for Hillary. And I see that. There are some people who felt like they, if Hillary would have won, they would have lost privileges themselves as far as being able to express and enforce their religious beliefs on others. Nick Bravo says, "I have great hair privilege." Hair privilege is something that I have on top of my head, but on my back and on my arms, hold on, I've got like hair right there, right? And that hair that grows all across my back right there, that's from the hormone replacement therapy that I have to use as a disabled vet. So I don't have hair privilege in that I have to shave my back, but I do have hair privilege on top of my head and still have like a full head of hair. Prince Noob Sauce says hair and beard, and Prince Noob Sauce has like probably by now 8-foot long dreads, and he's telling me that I have hair privilege. And Quintica says he thinks that some of my commenters are still living in the 50s. Could be because I have diverse demographics in my YouTube analytics. And that's it. That's me talking about my privilege and investigating it, and that's all your comments. And if you think I have a different privilege, comment below. Maybe I'll discuss it.